Hey, fellow babies. Welcome back to Pachter. The Pachter Factor. On SIFTD.net. We appreciate if you're watching on SIFTD. We hope you're a member. If you're not a member, for $40, that's a discount from the regular $50 price for the month of December. If you join and you're a new member month of December, you get access to all Pack Lovin'. If you're not interested in SIFTD, we understand. Normal price is $50. And you're watching on YouTube, welcome. Love to have you. Welcome back. Our first question this week from SIFTD from Subliming Mass. Why do publishers and developers allow Sony and Microsoft to gate off multiplayer in their games instead of running it off their own networks where they have more control over quality, ad revenue, etc.? The simple answer is because you would then have to be a subscriber to Activision's network, EA's network, Take-Two's network, Ubisoft's network, Capcom's network, any publisher that puts any content onto PS4 and Xbox One. So, you don't really want to join the Call of Duty network unless that's the only game you play. And if you played Call of Duty and FIFA, then you'd have to join two networks instead of one. So it really is that simple. In fairness, this kind of came up because Microsoft invented it. And EA balked at it, and they didn't want Microsoft to charge. And EA pulled all its content off in 2003, I think it was. And Microsoft said, fine, don't have your content on here. Gamers want a place to go. And when you go to the Xbox Live or you go to PlayStation Network, you have your gamer tag, you have your friends, you have your crew. And your crew in Call of Duty isn't always the same as your crew in Destiny, isn't always the same as your crew in Ghost Recon, isn't always the same as, your crew, if you can, in Assassin's Creed. I mean, you're going to play different games all the time, and you're going to have different groups, and yet you can go on and you get matchmaking. Microsoft know who's played which games. It's just a lot easier to have an aggregator there. That's sort of like asking, why don't you subscribe directly to CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, AMC Network, HBO? You don't. You subscribe to Comcast or DirecTV or whoever your provider is, and then they get all those channels for you. You watch all of them, and so you need one aggregator of all the content. That's what Microsoft and Sony do. So I frankly think that you're right that the publishers would like to have more control over quality, and you get that when you've got, companies like Blizzard who can pull that off on Battle.net. But other than Blizzard, it's hard. I mean, if you're doing like a free-to-play PC game, sure, like League of Legends will be on their network essentially. But it's really hard to do if you're playing on a console, because again, you're not just playing one game. And I guess they could try, but they couldn't charge for it. That would really be the problem. It's a separate subscription just for Call of Duty. Guys would not pay. I mean, some guys would, but most guys wouldn't. I think you'll always have an aggregator. So the better question is, when does Amazon become that aggregator? Because that's what I think is going to happen. I think we're going to move off console. I think Amazon's going to be the one that aggregates it all because they have the biggest, web services company in the world. So we'll see. Our next question from SIFTD from Arduenas 815. What would it take for a dedicated mobile handheld to compete with iPhone and Android handsets? It would take the backing of Nintendo. Oh yeah, we already have that, don't we? And it's not doing so well, is it? So the answer is not. You've had all sorts of guys try. It just doesn't work. It can't happen. You'll have a dedicated mobile handheld made by Nintendo that will play super high quality, immersive games and will thrive. And then you're going to have simpler games played on mobile, and you're going to use iPhone or Android. And that's it. I don't think there's a chance that Sony tries again. Do you guys remember the Vita? Rhymes with wife, Vita? No. I mean, Sony, I thought the PSP was great. I thought the Vita was better. So you had this really cool device. You even hear about that anymore? And raise your hand if you bought a Vita game in the last year. No. I mean, Sony doesn't even mention it anymore. It didn't come up at E3. They didn't even mention the word Vita. E3 2013, when they were launching the PS4, they talked ad nauseum about Vita, and I asked them why, but it was only like a year old at the time. But my God, here we are 3 years later, nothing. Like, it doesn't exist. So the answer is no. It would take somebody who was willing to lose an incredible amount of money, which was Sony with the Vita, and who didn't like that money very much because they were never going to get it back. Not happening. So just forget that. Not happening. Our next question from SIFTD, from Roy Den. How many PlayStation VR units does Sony need to sell for an adequate return on R&D and for third-party publishers to justify continued support? Do you think it's off to a good start? Good question. I don't know what they spend on R&D. I think that it's certainly a lot. I would guess that they're in it for 100 or so million. I think that's reasonable. It could be more. I don't know, and I don't think they've ever disclosed, but $100 million, my guess is on the platform itself, they're probably making $100. So the answer is they'll get back their R&D in 1 million or so units, but they've got to spend a lot on marketing. They're going to have to, they're giving product support to third parties to make games. They're developing games themselves. So the design of the device, it's beyond just designing it. It's setting up the manufacturing. Probably a better number is Sony's probably got $500 million invested in this thing, all in everything. In software development, third-party development support, setting up manufacturing, testing all the stuff. And so the answer is probably 5 million units before they break even, and then they start making $100 a unit. How long will it take them to do 5 million units? A year. I think they have 5 million in 2017, earlier than later. I think they sell more. So honestly, I think they're going to make a ton of money on this. I think they're excited about it. I think they should be excited about it. Third-party publishers, to justify continued support, they are all about development cost trade-off compared to unit sales and dollars. So, virtual reality games are going to be simple, short experiences first. Things like the Star Wars, X-Wing experience from EA pretty much is taking the X-Wing, fighting parts from Star Wars Battlefront and turning it into VR. My guess is EA spent $20 million on that, and my guess is EA needs to sell 2 million copies to break even. So, EA's making a bet, and if EA sells 1 million copies, they're probably not going to be there again. So it'll take a while. The early games on VR are really inexpensive. So again, probably a couple million units for a publisher, 5 million for Sony. I think you get payback, and then everything after that, they make money. And again, out of that $100 of profit, that supports their marketing spend. You watch PSVR get advertising support this holiday. It's going to happen. Okay, our last question this week from the SIFTD site, from Serial Killer. The original Gears of War cost $12 million to make. Today, AAA games cost over $100 million in many cases. Why have game development costs risen so much in such a short period of time? Boy, lots of reasons. Some games can be made with 100 people. I think Titanfall 1 had fewer than 100 people working in the studio. I think the right way to think about game development costs is, the average guy working on a game, including his benefits and his office space and his computer, costs about $100,000 a year. And I'm saying that number because it's easy to multiply times 100. But the truth is, you can look at Gamma Sutra. They do a salary survey every year of all the different people who work on games, and they have it all, based on producer, executive producer, creative director, lead artist, all the way down to just guys who fill in pixels in the background. And the range is, $150,000 at the high end, down to $35,000 for, but you got QA guys who probably even make less than that, probably $15 an hour, $30,000 for QA. So that's kind of the range. But you think about it, and if you can get 100 guys at $100,000, that's $10 million a year. And if you can make a game in 3 years, $30 million. Now, most games aren't that, but Titanfall 1 certainly was. So that was an inexpensive game, made by a supremely talented team because they know how to do it. And fortunately, they own, a chunk of the game, so it didn't really matter what it cost to make. They were going to get the big payoff on the back end. So they were willing to work for salaries because they were going to share in the profits from the game. Anyway, then you can go higher. Rockstar North or Rockstar Studios has 900 people, and they haven't made a game since 2013. So what's the cost of their next game? Well, of course, they did GTA 5 in 2013. They did it again in 2014. They did GTA Online in 13, 14, 15, and 16. So there's revenue coming in, and they were working on something. But my point is that how many years is it taking for them to work on Red Dead Redemption? So the answer to your question is it's just a function of time and staffing. And back in the day when you made a PS1 game, you could do it with a team of 50 people, and you could do it in a year, less than a year. So it was under $5 million. When you went to PS2, team sizes got up to 100, and Rockstar was bigger, but team sizes got up to 100 pretty routinely, and it took 2 years. When you got to PS3, team sizes frequently were 200, and as you know, with things like Grand Theft Auto, it takes 5 years. So you consistently are getting over $100 million. When you look at Ubisoft, they have teams of 400 people, not all working on the same game all the time. Some of the guys work on Ghost Recon and then switch over, work on Assassin's Creed, but that's what their game costs average $100 million. So it really is just a function of the sophistication of the console, the sophistication of the game design. If you do more in the game, you have more moving parts, more moving characters, much more complicated level design. Open world is really expensive, and that's what we're seeing more and more in games. So that's what's driving them up. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. If you're a SIFTD member, we appreciate it. If you're not yet a member, we're having a special in the month of December. The normal $50 annual fee is discounted to $40, so we'd love it if you could join for new members only. And we would love to have you watch on YouTube as well. You're getting it a week late for free, but we appreciate the support either way. Thanks for joining us. Have a very, very happy December. Hope you guys have a happy holiday.